Guys, Torella, I have about 3 or 4 minutes to start. Don't be impatient with us. Those who are online, don't be impatient with us. 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. Good morning to all of us, and it's still morning, I hope. And for those that are online, good morning. And if you hear me, you can raise a hand and take it down. Then I know all of you hear me. You don't have got to talk to me if you're online. Just want to check. I see your hands are coming up. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. It means I'm even heard beyond UNISA. Colleagues, thank you for attending this meeting. And let me, as program director, welcome you all and indicate that we expecting to have fruitful engagements. And let's see how do we advance the issue of transforming the publication landscape in South Africa with a particular focus on public administration, public affairs, and maybe government studies. We know we are challenged. We still do not have, as a country, our own governance philosophy as a country that we are teaching in all public schools. We also don't have our own singular or similar public administration system that we are all teaching in the country. And part of the reason is because maybe what we write creates the different pockets of that. We have one Public Service Act, one Constitution, one Municipal Systems Act, one Municipal Structures Act, one Public Administration and Management Bill, one Public Service Administration, Public Service Commission legislation. We've got all these acts that are indicating that this is where the country wants to go. But we know that our students, when they graduate from different universities, when they get into the workplace, they are homelands. Those are my opening remarks. Because at the conference of SAPAM, we had a session where we had invited publishers that were going to talk to them about transforming the publication landscape. We know that we have been able to transform the journal because we are the editors of the journal. We are the people that do peer reviews and all those things. But in the publishing houses, we're still not sure who's doing our reviews and everything. And therefore, transformation needs to go to those corners too. I'm going to ask Professor Paswana, the ED from the TM School, to come and welcome us and then and give us a welcoming address. And immediately thereafter, I'm not going to come back. Professor Millo will come up and do the welcoming on behalf of the SAPAM president. And then I'll come back and deal with the rest of the program. Professor Paswana, thank you. You have to stand here so that the other guys can see you. Thanks.
I'm hoping the other guys are seeing me. Good morning, distinguished guests of the TM School, and good morning to fellow participants also joining us online. On behalf of the management of the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs, the University of South Africa and its partners, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all. Today we are privileged and honored to host esteemed scholars to the seminar on transforming the publication landscape in South Africa. And this seminar comes at a very important time of our school. Today, the 8th of November, when I see it here on the, on the program, I know that the Council of Higher Education is considering our application. So we are fasting as the TM School. Today, we are not eating because we want to see our master's and PhD programs having been approved. And so it's a very important day for us here at the school on that note. And I'm wondering, because many of you are connecting online when we have so much for you outside there. And I think by the time we get to lunch, you would have arrived to have what we have prepared for you as guests. At the TM School, we understand that this seminar is very, very important. And I'm going to talk about the importance of this later. But let me just give those who are new to the TM School or those who are hearing about us for the first time. The Council of UNISA resolved in a resolution of 2019 to establish the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs, in terms of which the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute, the Institute of Dispute Resolution in Africa, the African Renaissance Studies, and the School of Government would be dissolved, and this school was founded. So the University of South Africa, as we know, our vision here as the University of South Africa is to shape futures in the service of humanity. And during this strategic period, we are reclaiming Africa's intellectual futures. So it is understandable that now the areas of knowledge production, knowledge dissemination become the area of reclaiming Africa's future, intellectual futures. In her inaugural speech, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Lenkabula, declared, reclaiming and advancing, and I quote here, reclaiming and advancing the African intellectual traditions means that we must not only think and publish, we must rethink. Just a minute, because I'm using the phone. Sometimes when you are reading from the phone, it's a problem. Yeah, we must rethink and relearn that which we have learned. We must invent structures, systems, products, and processes which advance human flourishing, dignity, and ecological sustainability. And this is an invitation that she says she wished to extend to our scholars. So as the school, we are hearkening to this. Okay, all right. So at the TM School, we are unapologetically pursuing the social transformation of Africa. And we believe that this has to happen even at the level of knowledge. And today, as we gather here, we also recognize the asymmetrical power in the manner in which knowledge is produced, processed, disseminated, and consumed. And we are well aware that there are knowledge hegemons in the publishing landscape. And Africa, as an epistemic site, as a locus of enunciation, is highly peripheralized. And those of us emanating from colonial spaces, we believe that the publication sector has to transform at some point. And it has to transform in such a way that it dismantles the dominant Western epistemological and cultural frameworks that have historically shaped the publishing industry. And we are very aware that seminars such as this will be able to help us achieve this. That and our partners, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, support efforts aimed at promoting the achievement of Africa's Renaissance by setting the agenda for progressive change throughout the continent and to serve as one of the intellectual homes of the continental African Renaissance movement. It also seeks to contribute to the training of especially the African youth to become change agents, consistent with the vision of this African Renaissance movement. It also seeks to establish itself as one of the premier Africa centers for dialogue, research, and publication focused on promoting the African Renaissance, to strive to provide a credible platform to help ensure that the African voice on African issues is heard and respected, both on our continent and elsewhere in the world, and help create the possibility for interaction and cooperation among similar progressive organizations and movements in Africa and the African diaspora. So one of the things that one has been asking herself over time is, how do we decolonize the publication sector? Is it even possible to decolonize the publication sector? These are some of the questions that we have to battle with today. There are key issues in the publication landscape. Number one, that we need to recognize, every one of us, the dominancy of Western perspective and voices. There is no doubt that Western perspectives and voices are dominant. Number two, the lack of representation and inclusion of marginalized communities. That is a fact, and I'm hoping that the publishers with us here are also noting this. Number three, the Eurocentric editorial standards and review processes. Number four is the limited access to publishing opportunities for non-Western authors, because their voices somehow get muted in this. And therefore, it's rejection after rejection. And this reminds me of Professor Pearl Stoller's book, when we were still very young, that she had the audacity to write Unequal Peer. I think many of you have seen the book, Unequal Peers. And I think in that publication, Prof. Sithole was trying to address this issue, that when you speak or when you write from a particular position, that is not in consonant with the publication, with publishers. In many cases, you face a challenge. Number five is the erasure of indigenous knowledges and cultural expressions. And those are some of the things. And there are several initiatives and strategies that we can begin to do as we do this work. The first one is diversifying editorial boards and publishing teams. We have to incorporate diverse voices, perspectives, and expertise. I sit on the UNISA publication committee, and our boss is here, the head of the press. And I remember in some of the meetings, there's a book, there was something around a Pan-African perspective, which is a book, and how we might not have people who can do the work, or people who are experts in this. And I don't believe that it is true that we can't have people who can review a manuscript or give us a perspective on this. But how the publication landscape is structured is because we don't, in these boards and publishing teams, we don't allow certain voices to be represented in those boards. And therefore, people who are there take a decision. And because of the lack of expertise, a book can be rejected, not because it's not scholarly, not because there's no rigor in the book, but simply because the current board is not diversified. Number two is we must also try to practice inclusive publishing practices, where we actively seek out and promote works by marginalized authors. Sometimes we are ourselves to also blame, because we also don't quote one another. We feel like we will promote Prof Miller's citation index when we quote him, and therefore we even decide not to read. We sit here, we might not even know what is it that Professor Lucky produces. Professor Miller, you know, some of us, we have never even read Professor Lebaken's work or Professor Miller's work. And then we also hope to change the publishing landscape when we, who are marginalized, are also playing this game of not quoting each other. Number three, in terms of the strategies, I'm just giving you a few strategies, but we will discuss as scholars will come and speak about this. We also need to decolonize editorial frameworks, actually challenging traditional notions of quality and validity. And I would even act on merit. Traditional notions of this, because sometimes these are used as barriers or gatekeepers to the publishing. What constitutes quality and what constitute validity? We have to talk about those frameworks. And open access publishing, which is number 4, is the last one I will want to talk about. It helps us in increasing accessibility and reducing barriers to knowledge. We know that we don't have money. We are in the global south. There are books that cost 1.5. And some of these books can transform lives here on the continent. There are books that cost more than 2,000. And just check African Voices. Books from African authors, many of them are very expensive. If you have not done it, in most cases, here in South Africa, they don't get published. Look at Professor Ndlovu Gasheni's works. People who were accepted at the beginning of his career were in America, and they're making a lot of money, when those books should have been published here in South Africa. And if you speak to Ndlovu Gasheni, who happens to be my friend, you will also realize that he has tried very hard to submit to some of our publishers locally. And then he has to go through a long route of publication or non-publication. So I'm happy that we have our publishers here who are always complaining, why are we publishing elsewhere or outside? It's because certain frameworks, certain things has to change within the publication sectors here in South Africa. And I know that the NHSS has tried a nice model. When we published our award-winning book, Black Academic Voices, we were deliberate about where we want to publish it, because there was an incentive at the HSRC to be able to get into the pool of awards and recognition. So I'm saying all of this to really try to conscientize our publishers present here, that we don't just wake up to say, I don't want to publish with UNISA Press. It will be lovely for us because our university also the ranking will go high, and all of these things, there are many factors that will, or it will be nice to publish with VETS, it will be nice. But the kind of scholarship that we are pursuing is not accepted within the very landscape where we find ourselves. And radical, transformative scholarship is not very welcome in South Africa. And that's why you see a lot of people publishing elsewhere, or people who have ideas and are thinking, end up not even putting their work in scholarly publications, because that's where the barriers and the challenges are. Number 5 is indigenous publishing initiatives. We know that people have started, Blackbird, they have started local indigenous publishing initiatives. That's another strategy where people are doing. So, and we need to support those indigenous-led publishing projects, because then that's where our work can go and be published. Translation and multilingualism. Promoting works in non-dominant languages. That's also another strategy to transform the landscape. Let's publish in Xhosa, let's publish in Sizulu, let's publish in Afrikaans, and be able to do that, be allowed to do that. Number 7 is critical examination of publishing histories, where we are deliberately uncovering and addressing colonial legacies as we do this. And also community-led publishing, empowering our communities to control their own narratives. Because in most cases, our communities offer knowledge, and that knowledge actually is taken by academics elsewhere, and they own it, and they don't own the knowledge. Help our communities to do that. And there are many examples of these decolonial publishing initiatives. If you look at Australia, US, and everywhere else, where the people were very brave to challenge these initiatives. And this was just my own reflection of looking at the publishing landscape here in South Africa. And I believe that as we start this discussion, we will be able to come with a resolution as a community. And I just want to extend my great appreciation to SAPAM for joining us and collaborating with us on this project. I also wish to acknowledge the DPME and also the School of Government for coming on board, the Department of Higher Education as well. I want to also acknowledge you for being here, and I wish you all the best in your deliberations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Phaswana, for laying a very good foundation in terms of the deliberations that we're going to have. Good morning to those who are presently in in the hall and those who are joining us online. The person who was supposed to be here in terms of the program is the president. But no, you know, in Africa, when instead of seeing the president, you see somebody, you start thinking whether there is a coup or not. And I can assure you there's no coup. President Shai is still the president. He's still safe in as far as his position is concerned. He is unfortunately unable to join us, and hence I'm coming in just to give the opening remarks. Now, as the program director, Dr. Mathebula, has indicated, there is some background in terms of what we are doing. The discussion started at SAPAM, and you would know, those of you who have been to SAPAM, that SAPAM is actually the biggest conference that we have in the field of public administration. If you hear of any other conference, you must know that that one is actually subordinate to SAPAM. So we had a discussion, and in that discussion, we had some of the people that were acknowledged, the DPME, the National School of Government, the Department of Higher Education and Training also came on board later on as we were discussing in terms of their involvement, but they said, okay, because we still joining you for the first time, we'll just be the observers. Now, if we talk about the publishing landscape, we must also declare as SAPAM that we are a publishing house and we are accepting manuscripts. For now, we're still publishing only in the field of public administration. And I heard the dean very well, my boss very well, when she was talking about diversifying. So it's something that we are noting. And fortunately, because I'm also wearing a number of hats, and my editor-in-chief is also here, we're also noting some of these things. When I started university, the shelves that I attended more frequently were a shelf on public administration. It was a shelf on psychology. And I couldn't see a black surname in terms of the books that I read when I was a student. And then I went on to become an academic. When I became an academic, I was teaching, prescribing books that are coming from America. And I remember in one honors class that we used a book on public policy. I still remember it. It was written by Dunn. And then I got to realize that the students started calling this book Dull Dunn. And it was not out of disrespect, but it was because students could not relate to this book. This book, instead of talking about the South African context, it was talking about the American context. Now, it is for this reason that as SAPAM, we also felt that we need to join the publishing houses that are available to make sure that we produce books that are going to talk to the environment in which we teach. Because when you teach a first-year student in public administration and management, and you are referring him to parliament as well as the political parties that are active in South Africa, that student is likely to understand you much more. And therefore, when we talk about transforming the publication landscape, it is more about most of the things that Prof. Paswana spoken about, but it is also more about the content. Because I remember I attended one a workshop where a question was actually asked: how many articles were published during load shedding? And then the answer was over 200 articles were published. And then the question was, why are these articles not leading to the solution of load shedding in South Africa? So it's also not only about publishing, It's also publishing for a particular purpose. Our publications being able to be part and parcel of this of the solution. The other thing is that when we publish, what we publish is not accessible. And I think my boss also mentioned that high walls, publication pay walls. Sometimes you can't even afford your own article that you published in an American journal. So when we talk about transforming the landscape, while we talk about accessibility and inclusivity, we also need to dwell more on the content of what we are producing. Now, on behalf of SAPAM, on behalf of the board of SAPAM, the president, as well as all members of SAPAM who are also online, and all the dignitaries that are joining us, we would like to welcome you and wish you a very fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
I will make sure I tell Professor Shai that he must be careful. But with you, he's safe. You have passed through that position already, so it's not an issue. Thank you, colleagues. We are going to have teaching Kuna. I don't see him on the online unless he's connecting from Ebongeni, somewhere in Limpopo. Teaching Kuna, are you at Ebongeni or are you here in Gauteng? I don't see you. Do you want to unmute and say something? Okay, he's still at Ebongeni. Ebongeni is a village in Limpopo there. He likes it. Let me acknowledge Professor Pajo, the editor of SAPAM. He has also just arrived, and maybe take a little bit of a roll call about the publishers that are here. Can we see you? If there are publishers here, people from publishing companies in the hall. Eunice is here, so that we don't share. We don't come out here and we have shared our own knowledgeability or ignorance about publishing. That's Shay Eiderich, yeah. I think there are two colleagues there. You can unmute and say from which publishing house are you?
We're from Jacana Media in Johannesburg.
Okay, they're from Jacana Media. Okay, thank you. Any other? And the SAPAM. Okay. So we're talking to 3 publishing companies. I just wanted us to have a context of how challenging this thing is. Okay. I'm one of those who has always been passionate about publishing, and that's why we, at the right time in the past, we made the resolution as SAPAM, not because we were competing with publishers, but because we were not happy at what they were doing. And then we said, guys, let's open our own publishing company so that we are able to churn out books that we want. Because the truth is, these publishing companies, they were approaching us as individuals to review. We realized that actually some of the books publishing companies, there were some of us in SAPAM who were reviewing for those companies quietly. So when you think you are rejected by the publishing company, Kandike Mathebula, who said, no, this subject is, he must go and research further. Then we said, let's do that so that we invite ourselves. As I'm going to be, I don't see Kuna, I don't see Busani, or the School of Government. They said they're here, but they're not going to speak. I only see Professor Pacho, which means we might have a shorter time and a shorter meeting, and that makes your lunch to be in danger. You'll have to take an elephant back, not a doggy back. Professor Pacho, let me call you because you are the one that is here. And not if I'm ambushing you, you can tell me. Okay, thank you. Professor Pacho. Otherwise, I'll talk about sundown for the next 20 years.
Yeah, good morning, colleagues. Thank you so much, Prof. Mathebula, and to Prof. Mello for the invitation. So, colleagues, this is quite an important topic that is very close to my heart in many, many ways and very significant ways. I think, and I will come to my notes now, I think we have not really sat down and talk about this. And I think this is really a revolution if you really want to conceptualize what we are doing today. I cannot remember it happening anywhere else that we going to sit in this fashion and grapple with the publishing and its nuances. And I think Prof. Edith has alluded to a range of issues that we need to consider. So my talk is also going to speak to many of many of those issues that she has also alluded to. And I think the part of the challenge that we experience is largely on, the issues of transformation. So if we're talking about transformation of publishing, one of the biggest problems, especially if we want to talk more about Africanization, about decolonization, is that we have not, or we still have a lot of work to do in making sure that the kind of knowledge we produce gets to be used. And for me, that should be mainstreamed in these conversations. So we need to go to our communities so that when we write, we know we are writing to people who will take the work and use it. And this is beyond the classroom. I don't think that we are going to win this battle if we are going to say we want the publishing landscape to transform when publishers are in business. So business tell them who is their market. Their market is not necessarily academics or writers. Their market is people who are going to buy. And if we go to libraries, if we go to bookstores, the question is, who do we find there looking for books? If we go to townships, if we go to Sunnyside, if we go to areas where we live, we need to ask ourselves, in the midst of this urban melting pot and activities, are we also found there with our business of publishing and making publishing, reading, writing fashionable? If the answer is no, I can assure you that this conversation will continue until the cows come home. So I think we also have a huge task in saying that in the course of transforming the publishing landscape, what is what should be intentional? What should we be doing intentionally to make sure that we are balanced in the way that we are going to engage this discourse? So as you see, colleagues, that my talk is about academics and publishing. One of my roles is that I'm currently from this year serving as the editor-in-chief for the Journal of Public Administration. So it's a very privileged position because I'm able to see a lot of what comes in and actually judge on issues of quality. And that is very controversial, but it's no longer controversial for me as a senior academic because I know what I would feel would meet some of the gaps in the discipline. Prof. Midlo spoke about the fact that we are still prescribing material. So it is still an issue. I mean, one of the subjects that I teach in my university is organizational theory. We don't have a book in public administration about organizational theory. So these are the realities that we are facing. So you always have to go abroad and look at what looks like it's closer to what you are doing, hoping that we will achieve that. But one of the things that we also, I think the university managers, university management in particular, and maybe even government, that they have not done to deliberately bring transformation into this is to create platforms, processes, centers, because academics are, we're experiencing high levels of burnout. Our university has done a study, Northwest University, in our faculty, and they've asked academics looking into their workload and so on. We are 99% burned out, literally. And I'm not talking about people that have taken sabbatical, are working on, because we really have a very small margin. So even with the talk that we are doing, we do not have resources, human capacity that is going to go out and write these books that we want to talk about. So we can talk about writing books, but you don't have the time because you have to spend a lot of time teaching lots of students, and then there are expectations that you need to be publishing. So we need to bring this conversation, this discourse within our practical realities to say, who else should be brought on board so they really, and decision makers, so they really understand the kind of dynamics that we are dealing with in order for us to make sure that the transformation of the publishing spaces actually is going to be taking place. So, and I think Prof. Midlo alluded to this, that we may be in the discipline of public administration focusing, oh my goodness, sorry. This is sensitive, right? Yeah, but anyway, I pressed by, yeah, I touched it. Soft touch. Yeah, sorry. I'm sabotaging myself. That's Prof. Midlo was talking about. Yeah. It's my sincere apology. That's very sad. Okay, colleagues, is this better? Yeah, we need to look for an IT person. Oh, yeah. I wonder why it's giving feedback. Colleagues, almost. Let me exit this. Okay, so it had opened twice. Okay. Colleagues, I'm very sorry about that. I think Prof. Milo is now our IT specialist. Yeah, but then there's a problem because yeah, it's going to be a battle. Let me see, colleagues. So I was trying to say that Prof. Milo has alluded to the fact that we are publishing only as SAPAM, but the issue of multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, it's actually going to be very important going forward on how do we publish outside our discipline. We have done so, especially with colleagues from politics. So there is some level of multidisciplinarity that is taking place there. And I think it's quite an important part because it's going to help a lot to transform to help us to, surely but slowly transforming our higher education system. And as I said earlier, colleagues, that this is a very momentous discourse for me because it's probably the first of its kind that we are sitting in this platform and just grappling with the ideas of how do we plan the publishing, how do we reconfigure, how do we transform or challenge the publishing landscape going forward. And I think that, in the midst of this, there are concerns that we may want to put on the spotlight if we really want this conversation to be relevant. And the issues that some have already spoken to in my opening remarks are that, what are we publishing for? So I think we need to also go and ask those fundamental questions, because if we're just publishing for the sake of publishing and getting a subsidy from the DHET, I think it's going to cause the issues of burnout, and to some extent, it's going to make us look very irrelevant going forward. But I think what we also have not, I'm not aware of the statistics. I know DHET may have this, but we still need to know and have this regular conversation on who is publishing. I don't think we know who is publishing at this particular point in time. So if we want to transform, and if we want to talk about transforming the landscape, we need to know what are we transforming. So first is amongst is who is publishing. But I think what follows that is that where are they publishing and which platforms do we have for our own discourse? So Prof. Edith spoke earlier about Professor Gajeni, who struggled to access some of the publishing houses. So we need to have a conversation about that, because then that gives us a clarity of thought on who is in our landscape and whether they are accessible and in what way are they accessible. So you don't want to spend 2 months working on a book proposal and then it's going to be rejected. You don't want that. You want to work on something that you know that you are going to give it your best. You understand the issues at hand, and that there are very high prospects of your proposal being accepted. So it's quite important that we talk about these issues. But I think the other issues that we may want to engage on more, colleagues, is that who are the captains of industry, especially in the publication space, and how to make these the industry, how do we repurpose the industry to make it meaningful and relevant. So if I, for example, I spoke about our areas, our informal settlements, our rural areas, our towns, townships, cities, how do we work with government, universities, publishers to go and infiltrate those spaces? If we know that young people, and not only young people these days, are going to drink from Friday until Sunday, why aren't we infiltrating those spaces and find ways of disrupting them? We are just talking to ourselves now. So we need to expand our pool so that people find other meaningful things to do than just to spend the whole weekend on those kind of stuff. And of course, we spoke about who uses the knowledge we are producing and how to ensure that this is optimized. So again, it brings us back on who are we publishing for. So we can't just write and publish and then we are moving to do another publication. Because if that is what we are going to do, we will have a volume of knowledge that is not being absorbed. So we need to find even practical ways beyond the classroom and say, if I produce a book, how do I make this accessible? What marketing strategies and how do we and one of the things we do in our journal is that we have book reviews, so we can have very creative ways. We can publish, we can talk to marketing people. They know how to make these things accessible. But I think we must also go to spaces that we have not been to if we really mean what we are saying about the fact that we want to transform the publishing landscape. So the question of content as well, and I'm speaking about the focus of transforming the landscape and ensuring that our history, our knowledge is included. And I think if we don't underscore that, we will find spaces that people just publish things that do not encapsulate or capture our history and our knowledge properly. And I don't think you need, and that's what Prof. Edith was saying earlier, that we do have people that will tell, this is our history, this is our knowledge. We may not agree with it, but it is part of our history. So the fact that I don't agree with what you are writing does not mean that it is wrong. It just means that I have a different perspective. And so we need to make sure, even when we do reviews, that the fact that I disagree with your work does not mean it's factual, does not mean that it's not well explained. It just means I have a completely different perspective. So maybe if I respond to you, you will be able to frame it in such a way that your submission will accommodate other perspectives, but it does not necessarily mean that it is not or should not be accepted. Because if we are going to contest on those, that this is not our history, we don't know where this is coming from, we eventually become even much more divided. And I think this is why we are here talking about transforming the landscape, is because we're not so united to be able to put in a publishing agenda that will convince the market and even the potential clients, our communities, to buy and use the kind of knowledge we are producing. But I want to also talk about some of the realities that we've experienced when the issue of transformation, transformation in our overall society has come, when it came in, that in many instances that we forgot that transformation does not and must never mean a downgrade to meritocracy. In most cases, we have put merit, we've put transformation above merits, and I can tell you, as an academic who writes in governance and public policy, part of the reason our public institutions, municipalities, provinces, national government departments, our SOEs are on their knees is partly because we came for transformation, which is a very important part of addressing the misnomer in our society. But we must never sacrifice merit. I would rather have a very racist person to occupy a position because they have what it takes than to have a black person who does not know what they are doing at that position. But we need to push for the agenda of how are we going to get a black person who qualifies there. So in most cases, we don't push for the right agenda at the right time. We push for the right look, and in no time, we all look like we don't know what we are doing. So for me, it's quite important that even when we talk, even when we train our students, we don't compromise in any way issues of merit. You will know the stories of Black economic empowerment. How many Black people are benefiting out of that? It's only a selected few. Why? If they issue out the BEE shares that we all run to and buy. I've been having these BEE shares for how many years now, and I don't see what is BEE about them because they have never empowered me in any way whatsoever. So I think we need to be very realistic about these kind of things that we are talking about, and be intentional and say, if we want to transform the publishing house, it is not going to be an easy task, but what are the baby steps that we need to be making? And we agree amongst ourselves that these are the baby steps that we are making, but over time, they should be able to bring something to the fore. And I've already spoken a bit about this, the issue of, bringing people together, the academia, the publishing housing. But I think what has not really been, what also has not come very strongly is the issue of funding. And I understand, because I also, if I'm a government or I'm a university, I'm not going to put my money where there is no proper plan. So academics, the departments, associations must come together and bring solid plans on the table and say, the discipline of public administration is intentional about changing the landscape, and we want to produce so many manuscripts, and these are the people that are going on sabbatical. We're talking to their universities because we know that we don't have material in this area. So if we develop all this material within the discipline, we should be in this period of time, we should be able to teach the kind of knowledge we have. But when we reduce this to, every university will tell you in South Africa that we are an African university. We are interested in decolonization. It's fine, but it's a very silo kind of an approach. It is very, small in its contribution. So if we use academic disciplines in this kind of conversation and say, how do we transform our disciplines and how do we make this meaningful? Then you will see the real battle will start, because the biggest problem, part of the biggest problems that we are having is, if you want to transform the publishing space, you must transform academic disciplines. You must transform the captains of knowledge, largely the editors. So you need to know who are the editors. So you must go to a forum of editors to see who are the editors. And that is quite important for funding decisions to be made, because you need to know how much is needed and how to resource this kind of activities. And work with universities around research leave and sabbatical for academics and people that are, in those spaces for who wants to work on this manuscripts and papers. And of course, we can't discount the question of the politics of publishing. So there are so many, how we make submissions and how they are received, how they are processed. I mean, I have stories after stories that we can tell about how some of the publishers because one reviewer feels that they disagree with you, but the other reviewers agree with you, they just tell you, we are not going to continue to publish your manuscript. Your manuscript doesn't sit well with us. So I think these are the questions we need to be engaging with more and more, because they face us and they are real. The second last question, Chairperson, that I feel very strong about is that because we can always easily talk and find a way of supporting established scholars to research and do their work, we must also at the same time think about the future. And I think in that way, we need to put support mechanisms for emerging researchers and intellectuals to be in the space. So we also need to be intentional about that. If we only have a congregation of established academics and leave those who need to be supported behind, we are going to find ourselves having to repeat the same process. And to conclude, I think indeed, in my view, I think we will need to have some workshops amongst publishers, amongst academics. We need to have DHED, we need to have ASAF, we need to have NRF, we need to have the Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences to help us think better. And maybe we also need to go to communities and find librarians there so that they can help us understand who's actually using the libraries and how can we expand this, because we don't just want to do it for the students who are forced to read, but we also want to spark some interest in the culture of reading in our society. So it is going to be a tall order if we want to sell our business, our manuscripts, our knowledge, because if it's not absorbed, then I think at some point our task will be untenable. Thank you, colleagues. I hope I've shared my ideas.
Professor, thank you, Prof. Pafo. I'm looking at you when you come down. You are wearing a SAPAM blazer. And I don't have one because when you guys buy them, you don't consider sizes like me. So I thought I must make it a publishing issue also. I must make it a publishing issue so that even in a publishing conference, I raised it. Thank you. Colleagues, before we get into comments by the publishing industry, I want to check if Professor Nkuna is back from Zanini. Nkuna, Miwile. Okay, he's not there. Dr. Mindo said I must keep on checking him. I forgot my program there. Colleagues, we need to engage. And when Professor Mindo asked me to be program director, I suspected only two things about your purpose. Either you wanted to censor me not to talk a lot from the floor, you know, or you wanted me to finish the meeting quickly. I will check which one is it at the end. I am going to have my say at the right time. We don't have DHED, we had Professor. I think it's time to hear the publishers that are here, just to so that when we discuss, we are giving them their own platform to respond. So what are they thinking about these things that we are raising? And because of that, I've seen the people from Jacana, UNISA. SAPAM is the one that organized this meeting, and therefore we cannot expect them to respond. the workshop itself is SAPAM's response. For me, publishing is the lifeline of the knowledge industry in the country. And to publishers agree with us that if we're saying society has knowledge, the lifeline is publishing. To publishing rearranges the narratives of society to be contextual. What we publish, we rearrange what society talks about on a continuous basis. Editorial committees of books, of journals, should actually process access to knowledge. So we've got people that write and you're in the editorial space. And if you are not there to promote access of what people send to you, to the public, we don't need you. The other thing, nobody spoke about how do we mainstream gender narratives. Maybe they could respond to that. Professor Paco spoke about it. It looks like the market for publishing in our discipline broadly is supported or dependent by prescribing. If your book is not prescribed or it's not prescribable, you are not going to be published. If nobody's going to prescribe it, you are not going to be published. Is that a better measurement? The other thing is that the templates of dominance in a society, they are embedded in the publishing and distribution society, community. How we are dominated, when you walk into exclusive book, you walk into what? The titles you see on the shelves, that's what dominates us, because you always talk about two families, where in another family, the issue is having a cake for birthday. In another family, the issue is whether we have lemon meringue, black forest, and whatnot. Meaning that the other ones have a choice of what cake they want. It means it's a given. They will have a cake. They're just making choices which type. But the other one, the issue is to have a cake. Whether you bring a whatever, as long as there's a cake, the birthday was best. And that's how I feel when I get into exclusive books. The books are there. The choices I'm making, I'm choosing how to be lost dominated by which author. I don't have alternative narratives about my society. The ones that are there, I choose which one is better than the others. I know it's the same poison, but I just choose which one. Because what would be different is not allowed on the shelves. You hear what I'm saying? When I say the distribution is an issue, because the books that we are talking about of Ndlovu Kache, you won't find them on exclusive shelves. On the shelves of exclusive books, which is the biggest distribution bookshop in the country, you won't find it. And that is a challenge. And I think the publishers must tell us what are those considerations, so that we want to know. I don't want to believe books that we write are not bought. I believe that books that we write do not have shelf space. Do not have shelf space. Part of the poisoning of the kids in the spaza shops is because there were other products that did not have shelf space in ShopRite and whatever, and those products found shelf space in the spazas. But we didn't check the quality of the products that went into the spazas. But they found shelf space. You get the thing that I'm saying. They found shelf space, and that shelf space is now dangerous for us. if you look at it, there are deeper issues there than just poisoning. I mean, if you go to Kenya or whatever, there's a shop called Nakumatt, Central Africa. There's a big chain store called Nakumatt. You don't find a lot of the brands in South Africa that you find in South African supermarkets. It means the shelves of Nakumatt are not accessible to the brands in South Africa. And when we talk publishing transformation, we're talking those things. We should think of creating subject matter specific, Professor Pajo, journals. We have SAPAM journal, but why don't we introduce, when we do a special issue, we then say, let's have a special issue on organization theory. Then we've created a platform for organization theory authors to express themselves and get the benefit of being published. Intergovernmental relations. So you then make a call that we're going to have 4 issues, but we're going to have 8 issues this year. The other 4, it cannot be a special issue for the same thing, but we choose subjects that we think the country needs to start writing about. And you have sub-editors for that. Then maybe when they apply with DHET, they can use those issues as the basis that we now need a new journal on this thing, and you can support it from that. I think that's how we can increase the throughput of publishing. Google has just announced, I think a week ago, which is this week or last week, they have put in a translation algorithm where you write something, you put it there, and then it gets translated. I know the Washington Post, it's also having the same algorithm. The journalists there, they write one article, and then they put it into a box. It becomes Mandarin, it becomes Hungarian, it becomes Espanol, it becomes whatever, because of the algorithmic things behind it. So we can do it. And when Google announced that last week or this week, somebody can Google that story. Google said, in South Africa, there are 2 languages, except English, that are part of that algorithm. I can tell you it's Afrikaans and maybe Zulu. So it means if that's the case, we can teach physics in Zulu. We can teach public administration in Zulu. And maybe we have access of people. They can buy our books if they're in Zulu. If you look at the sales figures of Isolezwe, that newspaper in KZN, it beats Sowetan like nobody's business, because people read it in isiZulu. Then, lastly, but not least, maybe we need to also think about how do we make sure that we don't look at changing the phases in the publishing houses. We leave them, we leave Jacana the way it is. Transformation is not changing Black people, white people for Black people. And that's where we lost it. Because sometimes the Black people that we change to replace the white people, they are more dangerous than the white people that we had. And we need to engage with that reality. For example, every weekend, from today until Sunday, millions of South Africans are going to funerals. You know about that. Millions of South Africans, they're in grave sites tomorrow. If you count the people that will be at grave sites tomorrow, you'll realize how important death is to South Africa. If you can do a census. But running a funeral, it's a project management case study. And none of us have written about that case study. If you think about it, somebody dies on Monday. On Saturday, we're burying that person, lock, stock, and barrel, feeding 1,000 people. If you look at the logistics that get into that thing in 7 days, can you imagine if we write that science? Just write that as a science and we teach it. It's a science. Very few people have. How many catering companies, at least now there are catering companies. And in that process, there are psychological services. Those that cry, they are taken care of. There's a lot of things. If you look at the stakeholder engagement processes that are there, the whole project, you look at the project of a funeral, you look at it, you say, wow, guys, why can't we build a school in 7 days? You hear what I'm saying? So when you say our narratives must change, it's things like those. We must see project management in a funeral, project management in a wedding. The COSATU guys, how they organize. I mean, today, there's a march here in Swat. The very ANC that we complain that it can't organize things. But I can tell you, if you go and look at that march, you'll see the efficiency of the ANC at its best. The efficiency of the ANC is seen when it must organize the protest. How can we take that and manage it into a science? Let me move on and go to questions. I was at Atlanta sometime, and I met a certain professor who died. He was a very good guy. He produced an article per week. And me and Professor Nkomo, we said, but how do you do that? At Georgia State University, he used the students. So he co-published with the students. Now, if you are doing a master's, we have master students, why don't we get your master students to produce a textbook at the end of the year? Whatever they have produced, you make sure that what they produce becomes the chapters of a book that you are managing. Thank you. Now, UNISA, we can invite us taking time so that we don't lose you. I want to make one last point and get UNISA to respond also to that. Sorry. Because I want when the publishers talk, they have answered. They said, Professor Taro asked, who are the captains of industry? Can we consider you as one? And then, yes. Professor Taro spoke about our history should be included. My question is, if we have control of the journals, I think there are 2 journals, and that we must know, only 2 journals, we can safely claim that they are almost 100% controlled by people we can call transformation people. And the rest of the journals, we still need to do a lot of work. But publishing houses, how many of those publishing houses should we still go and say, we want to be included when they are run by our people? You get what I'm saying? How do I go Mathebula and say, please include me, I'm a Mathebula too, when Mathebula has run a thing? So we need to interrogate the UNISA press. What is this criteria you have that is making it difficult for people to publish with you? The TUT press, the VETS press, the UKZN press. Why? Because now we think you are in charge and yet we don't see a throughput. And then when we go to other publishing houses that have other criteria, we are able to say, but those ones are doing it. But at the moment, we don't have, we might not be having that precedence. I'm going to allow the people to talk. Professor, you can take the mic and rove it. And let me allow the publishers to respond. And let me start with UNISA first, because they have time pressures, and thank you for sensitizing me. Yeah.
Before UNISA first speaks, I just understanding that we don't historicize and regulation. This is an untaking discourse. This is why all started right. This is why we ended up calling Scotland players. And I think instead that behind the talent in the other story of Margaret and we want to say things about the southern player and the school to the states. Which is not religious because the school will hold and there is saving for the schools. We want to be fair and sound for yes. You can't say in some business. It's going to go about it. It's going to the fair message.
Okay, let's have a discourse.
We're talking about publishing in general, not necessarily to promote regional public administration. And by the way, about this, one of the heads that I'm wearing is also regional public administration. And I need to say that yes, when we got the all, including the other presidents, the journal that we have within the school. When we started opening that gave a perspective in what schools would say. And that would also be appropriate that if you want to talk about any other journals, any other challenges, any other issues related to transformation, we should talk about them, not necessarily talk about public administration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Okay, let's give publishers an opportunity. The transformed zones of publication in these countries cannot be denied. And SAPAM is one of them. I submit. I can write a full dissertation on that. SAPAM is a transformed zone in terms of publication and in terms of changing the landscape of the country. And we are proud. It's not a propaganda. Can I get publishers to respond on that? And let's take it forward. Chakana, let's start with you, or unless UNISA wants to go first because they are physically here with us. Okay. Chucks?
Are you going with UNISA or you want to talk with Chakana?
No, they say you should go first.
Okay.
I'm trying to put you where you can be. Can you speak so that I ask if people can hear you?
All right. Can you hear us? I'm Bridget.
Okay, at the back. Thank
Have you got us?
Yeah, you can continue. They can hear you.
Yes, excellent. So I'm Bridget Impey, and this is my colleague Shay Haydenrich beside me. Move over, Shay. We are Jacana Media, and we are an independent publishing house. What is very clear to us listening to you this morning is that there is an enormous divide between people wanting to get published and the publishers who are publishing in the country. I think that I'm delighted that there are 3 publishers here, but it is very sad that there are not more of us. What I want to do is I want to hold this up. I'm just wondering if you can see that. And this is, if you were to scan this, everybody, you can use your cell phones and scan this, and you can sign up to our mailing list. Because if you don't know what we're doing, and if you don't know what we're capable of, it's very difficult for us to connect with you. You need to be able to hear us, and we need to be able to hear you. And connecting with our mailing list is exactly the way that it can happen. We have 10 full-time staff. We have 5 interns. We train people. We grow people for the publishing industry. We have 5 Black interns right at this moment learning about publishing, and 2 of them are about to set off into the world and change the world of publishing. That's what we're doing, 1 intern at a time. We get very little support from anybody. It's a very tough job being a publisher. And we do need to be supported. We need people to buy our books, because if people don't buy our books, and I think that was the message from, was it Prof Pargo?
Pargo.
Yeah, Pargo.
Don't say the age.
Okay, Pargo.
No, don't say the age. Then
no, I'm saying Pargo.
Yeah.
And I think that was his message, is that what are we doing about buying books ourselves, and how are academics supporting the publishing industry? So you have homegrown publishers who are desperate to meet with you, to show you our books. We have a website that you can buy from, and you don't need to go into a shop. You can go onto our website. We are going to have a 50% off sale at the end of this month. So join our website, join our mailing list, learn about what we do, support us, and we can support you. We'd love to be hearing from more of you. We don't hear enough from you. So that's our plea. It's a plea to connect, and it is also a thank you to you for making this meeting happen, because I think it is so important that we are able to connect with you. And this is a great start.
Thank you. Is it Shay?
Bridget was speaking.
Bridget's the one with the white hair. Shay's the one with the black hair.
Okay. You want to come in? Or should I give you the mic? Okay.
I saw.
No, he's here. I want to give him the benefit of, he's got the benefit of being with us. Is there somebody again online? Okay. This React is, yeah, thank you.
Let's see if anybody signed up.
No, they might be needing transformation. We're struggling to hear the UNISA spokesperson. Oh, no, it was a question. And I'm selling Mbande Yeshumelo. Mbande, can you come through? Unmute and talk. Mbande Yeshumelo.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm here.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I wonder if you can hear me well.
No, we hear you well. We will complain.
Okay.
We're trying to see if we can see you.
I'm not so sure. If you don't mind, I would like to remain
Okay.
That's a video.
We understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
We
Mainly
understand.
because someone shared this link with me. I did not know there was such an important meeting. And then as soon as they shared, I jumped into the meeting and, because I saw the publishing part of things. I really want to agree with the lady that spoke before me to say, as much as I am, my name is Dudu Xaba, and I am a CEO of Mpande Hlumelo. It's a self-publishing company. We have published almost 14 books, and some of them are theses that we've converted into books. So we call them our academic books. Those with PhDs would like to convert, so we do that for them. I want to agree and say we are facing a very serious challenge when it comes to finding space for authors' books in different bookstores. And, we feel like maybe because we're not known that much, that's why shops like Exclusive Books would not even look at us. And you find that the books that we have as Mpande Hlumelo, they carry so much in terms of information, people writing biographies that can contribute to empowering young stars of this country and all that. So I just wanted to appreciate this meeting and to say I would appreciate also if you can, we can be recognized as self-publishing companies because we really are passionate. I am very passionate about writing as well as publishing. I believe in the fact that we should have books, we should write and leave our history behind. And it's important that we continue to have these meetings so that you can then get assistance in terms of how we can also be recognized as self-publishing companies. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. On our side, maybe together with the TM School, but from our side as SAPAM, you can send us your details through the medium that you got the invite, because we will be making self-publishing companies known to our members that want to also publish through self-publishing companies. And I like the fact that you say you can help people convert their PhDs into books. And we have a lot of those things. And I hope you can also do master's degrees for that. Please make sure that you are on our database and you are at all our conferences, because we are serious about this matter of publishing. Any other independent publisher there? Okay, we're getting physical, thank you. And that
Good morning. Are you good? Right. I understand that I will be coming from the point of providing responses. I might not have gotten all the questions, so I'll try to provide responses, probably also in a way of articulating our role and what we do in the space. My name is Meyer. I'm with UNISA Press. Maybe as a start, it might be necessary to acknowledge that the publishing is both diverse and not homogeneous. That it's both in terms of mandates and the author interests. And I'm finding that necessary maybe to just put it out there so that some of the conversations I will probably talk about might be well located with my colleagues who are independent publishers, and some of the conversations are more located in my space. We are predominantly, if not solely, a scholarly publishing. So sometimes there's those subtle differentiators. So please bear with me if maybe I'm not responding to everything. But I'm going to try and locate my reflections, I think that's the best way to put it, on the topic we're talking about of transforming the publishing space. Now, some of the reflections I will have, maybe I'll give them through lived experiences and my exposure with the kind of work that we receive at UNISA Press and how we go about by this. So let me start at the very top. And I would like to believe this happens in every organization, every publishing house, in every scholarly publishing particularly. Let's deal with the bureaucracy that while colleagues knowingly or unknowingly, we sometimes by silence participate in the bureaucracy that university presses operate under. And bureaucracy is good because it provides the guardrails on the staircase. But sometimes maybe the staircase guardrails are just too decorated unnecessarily. And it has been my observation in the few weeks that I've been with UNISA Press that sometimes both our authors and stakeholders participate by their virtue of silence and non-participation in the publishing business. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form obligating myself of what we do as UNISA Press. I'm just sharing my observation. As a point in case, I mean, I said I've been with UNISA Press for a few weeks. I mean, to be particular, it's about 7 years and so. I have observed that one of the structures that we have that governs the quality and other things of press, which is a statutory body, it's dominated by colleagues who are not prolific authors. So it's a structure that I found. I operate with them. There's nothing wrong with the structure. I'm a very practical person, even before joining the publishing space. So, and I'm not in any way, form, or shape discrediting the quality of colleagues we have. Don't get me wrong. I am just saying one of my observations is a structure of that nature. I don't know in other university or university process how it works. You have colleagues who should advance their work of publishing, but are not themselves prolific writers. So these other colleagues should provide strategic leadership to myself and the team. Could that be one of the variables that in one form, shape, or form allows for this non-transformed as articulated by colleagues? I don't know, but it's possible. I like the notion, and that's particularly my view. When you talk of transformation, I don't look at transformation individually as changing faces. You can have very Black people who are very Eurocentric in their approach, and you can have very white people who are very Pan-African in their approach. So I don't deal with colors. So I'm glad that you're in the same locus of control when you're dealing with transformation. Transformation in the publishing space, it's how we transform firstly from ours owning the process. How do we transform the process of publication, i.e. making it easier, the form of content we attract, and the mechanizations that we utilize to get to the end product as part of transformation. That will mean in the value chain, how many of the copy editors and so forth who are in the space that we like to publish in. Now, here's another gospel truth, especially when you get to the reviewing of the text, and I'll come to what I think of it. This is not in my observation, and anybody in the industry will attest to this. I hope I'm not getting my things wrong, because I find it everywhere I go. The text that we publish from the scholarly location needs to be peer-reviewed in one form or shape. And while you talk of peer review, I'm going to park there. There's an obsession again in South Africa of blind peer review, double-blind peer review, which is not even in the policy of DHET to have a double-blind peer review. It just says there must be a peer review process. Now, peer review, it's multifaceted. You can have a double blind, you can have a single blind, you can have an open peer review. But for whatever reason, the universities in South Africa, let me talk of my own, we have chosen to regard review as a double blind peer review. Now, my question is, does it mean an open peer review is not quality enough? And the reality is that it's not true. In fact, open peer review lends itself to more integrity and quality because we can see what you're dealing with and what you say. So why am I putting that in the conversation of transformation? Because we have this, I'll call it obsession with double-blind peer review. Here's the reality. If you're looking for somebody to peer review a corporate finance or a finance book or paper, and you know me, chances are you're going to come to me because you know I've got my interest in corporate finance and finance. But the reality is there are many other colleagues you don't know in the space. So we tend to be biased, rightly or wrongly so, to the circles that we know. And sometimes the circles that we know in the publishing space lend themselves to non-transformed products that we deal with. And it's another very simple thing that we never talk about. Going to I wanted to talk about peer review again. Because we have and this is not about only South Africa, there is what we call a reviewer fatigue. Either it's books or journal articles. On average, what we see, a book takes about easily 3 to 6 months from the reviewers. And publishers, and again, I can only speak for UNISA Press, not other publishers, depending how you engage with reviewers. And I want to also locate ourselves to the journals because we've been blessed that we publish both books and journals. And we've got a stable of about 45 journals. And some of these co-published with Taylor and Francis domiciled in the UK. An article that is published quickly will take around about, I don't know, from the peer review process, nothing less than a month. And again, because there are many participants, maybe by show of hands, are any of us here even reviewers of articles or books? And chances you find that you end up having those who are in the business of doing this work, they're overburdened by review. Now, human beings, I can't remember who said this, are not benevolent, by their very nature self-serving. I can't remember who said this. The reality is at some point, if you've got 10 books to review, there is no way you're going to go through all of them. And some of them, there's a highly likelihood that the review work is going to be shoddy. I'm not saying you're doing shoddy work. I'm saying when I look some of the texts that I received that are reviewed documents, you've got 2 reviewer reports, but the depth and the breadth, you will not believe that they're from the same text. So I'm saying, and maybe right now I'm just dealing with the processes and protocols and that. Let's come to the content. Now, my observation, rightly or wrongly so, the reality is, for whatever reason, maybe the locus of focus from the universities and they were set up was from the Eurocentric approach. And the methodologies that we use tend to be intentionally or otherwise Eurocentric in their deliberation. So I was told when you grow up, how you get research, how you get new information. It could be finding people sitting under the tree. That's a methodology, right? I believe that. So if I go to a rural place in KZN or anywhere and I find elder people sitting there talking and you're taking information, that's a research methodology. But that is not the research methodology that is recognized in the peer review mechanizations of the university process, at least at the very least. So when the text is written and it's sent to a reviewer who got their PhD, most of us who got PhD is through the Eurocentric approach. And I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. It's very good. So the text that is read from the information gathered of people sitting under the tree, the methodology of that is not regarded as research methodology. And maybe I'm trivializing something that is not necessary, but it's a fact. So when you get a text like this, that's going through a process that does not recognize indigenous approach of research. It doesn't even go beyond the internal screening. It doesn't. It's not an accusation, it's a process that is structured that you need to follow. And so these are some of the impediments, in my humble opinion, that slow down the transformation, because how we gather the research and what we write are also part of transformation. So you can write an English book that the research methodology of the text was collected in an indigenous manner, and vice versa. You can write a Xhosa text that the research methodology is grounded in Euro approach. We need to find a balance of, by transformation, what is it that we do? And as I said, and I want to keep quiet, that is not a response anymore, it's a speech, and my humble apologies. I hope I was able to touch some things. All I'm saying is, we need, in my humble opinion, firstly recognize that both are commercial publishers and university presses. Firstly, we rely on what we receive, but we also rely on the players in the industry to help us to say, this is what matters. I'm just going to say two things. Maybe the question is, but yeah, we hear all this. What are you doing as UNISA Press? Maybe that's the critical question. So I even realize all these things. One of the things that we did this year, being a university press, we decided, you know what, we're going to start a series that we now call a popular series. That we're going to minimize the bureaucracies of the text that we do. And I'll give you the name of the book. So we did a prototype. And one of the easiest, no, in a university, as an entity, we need to do things and do R&D. So we published a book by Dr. Mazwai, the Soweto University Journey in March. And we followed a totally different approach than what it would have otherwise gone through. And our argument was very simple. As an entity, we need to be pliable, we need to do R&D. This is a prototype. Let's see how this text is. It's not a pure scholarly book, but it's not yet a pure, it's not a fiction. And here's the thing. The book, if that text, I can tell you for free of charge, had followed the protocols of a scholarly book, was not going to be published. So all I'm saying is, as press colleagues, we also need to be agile. We need to be in the space, understand, and be prepared to put our heads on the block. Unfortunately, not many of us are prepared to put our heads on the block. Maybe I've finished talking here, I don't have a job, I don't know. But the fact that the principles will stand, we need to be prepared to say, we need to transform the industry to what it is that we create in creating new knowledge. Lastly, we've got also what we call the laboratory. In the university press, in the scholarly publishing space particularly, there is a new trend. It's not new anymore. It started about 5 years ago, of preprints. Now, some editors, I'm told, of journals, they say, no, if you posted your article on preprints, we don't want to publish it. That's ludicrous. It's crazy. Because preprints enable, firstly, it's a laboratory that enables us to get your ideas, your thoughts out there as quick as possible. That's number one. Number two, it's a platform that allows us to get both the author and the editors and the reviewers in the same platform. Thirdly, it's a platform that allows for a work that is not of great standard to be openly peer-reviewed, be developed, and be made available. And fourthly, it's a platform that allows for new and emerging authors and novice authors to start writing. So at the very least, as UNISA Press, I mentioned three things. There are things that we're trying to do that are different, but to try and participate actively in transforming the publication space. If I didn't answer your question, I'm so sorry. There were too many, and I know I didn't write them down, but I hope at least I give a bit of the broad understanding from my reflections and what we do. Thank you.
It is a conversation, and that's the nature of conversations. We say what we think what we say. Do we have, now it's time to hear the audience here, just to interrogate some of the things that were said. We have had the editor of SAPAM, You've had some publishers, you've had Professor Paswana, you've had everybody that spoke. Any questions that we need to, there is a roving mic here. It's so good. Online. Please help me. When I don't see them, help me. Online, any question? Because some of you might be in China. Any question? I see one is X there. Are you Jinping? And any question? Raise up your hands. We don't see them. More. Yeah, try to do that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, there's Kamukhelo there. Kamukhelo, let's start with you. Unmute and Kamukhelo. Yes.
Good morning, Prof. I don't know
yes, Kamukhelo. Speak to your mic.
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, speak to your mic because the computer must speak to our mic.
All right. Yeah, am I audible right now?
Yeah, you're better. Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you for the presentation from all the speakers that brought upon and the insight that they brought to us. I just wanted to gain access and understand with the processes with the publishing in SAS. We are focusing on trying to transform, use the transformative process that we can use. As me trying to get into the field of publishing as an academic, because obviously we are doing our dissertation through Wits and other institutions. So I just wanted to get more clarity in which, how can I, as me being an academic, to collaborate with the other publishers so that they can assist me in terms of funding and, outreaching some of our frameworks that we want to give out to the population. Thank you.
Okay. If you would just focus on the question you have asked, they couldn't hear you. Kamu? Hello.
Yes, bro. So what the question was is to understand the process that I, as an academic, or as me trying to gain insight of how can I collaborate with the other publishers, and also so that I can outreach them, so that we can broaden out, because as we are still gaining insight on how we can distribute some of our resources, we don't want to undertake it through the political sphere, but more of trying to gain insight in other avenues, such as issues now, as they spoke about the spaza shop crisis that's happening. Yeah. So how can we reach out with some of our resources to the other publishers? Thank you.
Okay. The question is simple: is that how do people like Kamu and others access publishers when they have knowledge that they think it needs to come out? I think that's the bottom line of what this is asking. I hope Cargo and Paswana and our publishers that are here will provide quick answer. I see you took a mic. Oh, there's a roving mic here. Colleagues, if you don't have questions, you don't have them. If you have them, you have them. Don't force yourself to have them. There's another one there. There's a hand there. And there's another hand. I see there's another mic here. Chief Ukashapa page. Hello, I couldn't hear you. Okay, Mpigele. Okay.
And just thinking about this concept application coming transformation, it might be is a very long one. So I can in fact want to experience trying this means because the problem most of them are very complicated. And in most cases, we try to address some of the issues that that focus a subset of the bigger problem. And then we kind of, I think we kind of overlooking the issue. My take on this is that the bigger problem here near the IMF and where the World Bank, we developed a problem that all countries, particularly developing countries, must by address the structural adjustment framework to the critical problem. But I mean, the critical issue that we should do. Because if you look at I know that South Africa is not rise to the structural adjustment goal. But if you look at the framework that we have been developing, we are in line with that. And by changing that, as long as the need and not addressing that, whatever attempt that you are doing to address this, our issue that is policy, we not make it a situation to solve the problems inside. So I feel that we need to go and quickly, I mean, I also said the presentation that was mentioned, I mean, the information that we need to decolonize some of the epistemologies. And I was just asking myself, how do we do that when we have a program that is stating that this is the position that you need to follow? If if you want to transform, if you want to change the state level of the development, climate development. So I would think it's making to understand how can we transform the bigger framework that is to keep some kind of one time and really more radical from the developing countries.
Okay. You got the question, yeah? The PAHO, Menlo, UNISA, and Professor Paswan. You're going to help answer some of the questions in some of you are speaking here. You are speaking here. That was the price for speaking. You did not know that we were conscripting you. Yes. Yeah.
The email is so my is the truth. We seem to basically concluded ourselves
publishing the slide is the authors. But one of the things that we have not is the pressures that are put, especially on academics, who then churn out material that is really of less quality. I think we need to ensure that in as much as we look at the publishers, we also ensure that what we write as authors, even under pressure, is of quality. I understand, I appreciate what authors are quality and but that is very important. The fact that we want to publish and we are not being published cannot always be the problem with publishers. We should also interrogate why we are doing this. I think for me, that is very important. And the second issue that I wanted to look at is that I program director and the website, and then you as somehow you are transformed.
No, we're one of the few liberated zones.
That's issues. And it was, it is very safe. The nature of the form doesn't mean that editor in general will always have a particular intention that is editing. All the majority of papers that appear on each issue are from the institution that editor belongs to. And that's why we see many people take editorship for purposes that have less to do with transformation, but everything to do with how they are going to either position themselves or position their institution in terms of publication. I was raising that because I was saying, as a new editor, with Prof. Milos giving you support, that is what we will not be expecting from the journal. So there are some aspects of that transformation that we talk about that needs to be interrogated. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. Let's take answers so that we can, let's take comments in response and answers. I want to clear why I'm using liberated zone and not transformed. You know, a liberated zone, it means we are able to make choices of what we publish in our journal without any prejudice. And that's why we don't take accountability a lot about the content that is in what we are publishing. We take accountability about the quality of the scholarship that is in the article you are publishing. So that's the difference. What you find in other journals, they take a position on what you are saying and not approve the scholarship that is behind what you are saying. And that's why I'm saying we're liberated in that sense. We still need to deal with content quality issues ourselves. I'm not sure we're transformed there. You hear what I'm saying? But we're liberated at least. We can't be told by government right, we can't be told what to publish in our journal. And that's why we are so bullish to start this conversation in the country to say, can we talk about publishing? We're starting this thing. People are afraid to talk about this thing in this country. We are starting it, and this is not the first of the workshops. There are many that are coming until we get to the point where we know what is this template that must be fractured to have the publishing industry liberated. There's a template somewhere we can't fracture, and we need to fracture it. Ma'am. Prof. Pasana, for a moment, I've requested to leave at 12:30. I've got a competing thing. So thank you for the time. And Prof, he will close it. Thank you. Sure.
What was the factor that precisely value for to change how the world is, change how the world system is organized. But we have a choice to start telling. We have a choice to start telling and to pass away from the dominant narratives. And I'm saying this because I'm looking at China all of the time. There are many things that you have, there are many things at multilateral stages that China believes that they don't believe in, and they are able to have a position on them to say we will not follow. And South Africa recently also led with ICJ case, when the world was afraid to stand up and say anything around the issue of Palestine. But when we talk of decolonization and not following the dominant narrative, we talk about positions like what South Africa talk of on the Palestinian issue. So I think it is possible. It just needs us to be able to stand up and stand for our position. I think this is where we are. We are always running short of not able to stand up for the position that we believe in, so that we can change the things that we need to change and think the global development agenda and how we stand. And another important decolonizing factor or vision was the formation of BRICS. And the formation of BRICS, for me, I also see that what was the predecessor to BRICS? What was the predecessor? So those things, it is possible when you have great leadership that has the vision. And I think President Beng was one of the people that believe of IPSA, who is the formation of this. And I think those are the milestones of changing dominant narratives. And now BRICS is so huge, it's growing, and it's being joined by other people from the global south. In the transformation from picture to BRICS. And I think it is upon us. That's why I say many of these things, they rely on us, because sometimes we grow up knowing this is the way it's doing things, and you never even think of changing. That there is another opportunity, another possibility. And I just wanted to say, it is possible to live it apart from those dominant narratives, not just to change them, because the dominant narratives are the ones that oppress us, and we tend to change them as they are. People who usually move the bridge are the ones who also embrace liberation and be able to do things, and they are the ones who are able to self-establish. And I think many of my colleagues here, I can think of culture, the way she speaks always around how she wants to change, and the way macroeconomics is being practiced in the world, and how it can be able to move for South Africa in terms of policy and in terms of how we do things here. Because that part of the shift that we need You don't have to say things have been done this way and then I was going. You can start your own new and decolonization. The reason why decolonization is becoming a buzzword. In other like you say, it's becoming a buzzword. It's because sometimes formal structures are the ones who actually contaminate the alternative spaces that people create. And even the idea to decolonize, or sometimes the university that is going for the way they invest are the ones that are going to work. You know, the very scary thing to say, but sometimes the formal ways are the ones that fail. If you think about the feminism coming up, it started outside the university. And as it gets into the university, it gets contaminated in the neighborhoods. So that's why I'm saying we have to really think how we want to start on what is best as the government.
Thank you very much, Prof. Paswana. I think there was a question by Kamogelo in terms of how can, I don't know if he's an emerging scholar, but how can you collaborate? And I'm not so sure whether the question was a question that was meant for publishers or for scholars, but perhaps one can try and just attempt it from the perspective of a scholar. Now, as established scholars, it is actually our responsibility to collaborate and to mentor young scholars. So, Kamogelo, if you want to publish in a particular area, ideally you should be able to identify a scholar who is very good in that particular area and ask for a collaboration. And then the publisher will come later. Do we have other questions? And I think I'm going to try and wrap up as soon as I can. But most importantly, what we need to talk about is how can we help those who have not yet published? How can we help those who are struggling to publish? That should be our takeaway from this discussion that we're having. So that next time when we have some kind of a follow-up discussion, we must be knowing what is it that the emerging scholars in particular need. The established scholars are, in fact, we're talking to you, but mostly our focus should be on the emerging scholars. There's also an issue of money in publishing. Remember, money is about the publishers. When they want to publish your book, they want to know, is it going to sell? If it is going to sell, they are going to publish it. The issue of money also is there on our part as academics. When we publish, we're also saying, out of the subsidy, how much am I going to get? And that impact in as far as the mentoring is concerned. Because if I mentor somebody and I publish with him, and I'm supposed to be getting to 50,000, it means I'm going to get 25,000. So an established scholar perhaps may look at that and say, if I publish more with emerging, then I'm not going to get that money. So we should also find a way to say that if you are a professor, you should be able to publish every year at least with one emerging scholar. And that is how we're going to make an impact in as far as making sure that those who are not published are getting into the publishing arena. And in my position as a deputy editor, I can also tell you that I have come across articles that have been written. This is going to be a perfect article, but it has been rejected. So we need to look at different ways in which we can be able to help our emerging scholars. Perhaps let me start online to say, online, what is it that we can do in order to change the landscape? And I hear from the publishers are saying, buy. Yes, maybe for Christmas we must buy our kids books as presents. That's another way of inculcating the culture of reading in our own households. Anyone on perhaps some takeaways in terms of the way forward online? Right, maybe we can come back to online, and I can look at the people that are with me physically here. Okay, Prof. Miller. There should be a roving mic somewhere. Just pass it on to Professor Miller. Okay, thank you. Any other person apart from Prof. Miller? All right.
Solidarity. We initiated a developmental workshop. And what we did, we got support from the Innovative 2-Cup program. And what we did was to prepare editors from particular journals with contributors for the focus on emerging scholars as well, where the editors were in the room. Often the disruption of the distance between editor and recipient creates a problem. People get the rejection letter and are unclear how to proceed or discouraged from proceeding. In that particular engagement, it became the responsibility of both editor and contributor to work together in a digital endeavor to produce that article. And we had something like a 300% increase in publications from emerging scholars specifically for that year. So the developmental workshop, we put the editor on the spot where they have to. Editors at that point were willing to assist without financial remuneration. In the world today, that level of citizenship is probably not present anymore, but funding can be raised for those kinds of initiatives, and they can have an immediate and productive outcome.
Thank you very much. That's one way of having to assist the emerging scholars. You have a workshop, and you have editors of different journals there to assist and to guide the emerging scholars. Any other input from the floor? All right, I'll go back to those who are online again, if there are inputs in terms of the way forward, in terms of how we can assist you at the university as publishers as well. All right. Yeah, no, if we have exhausted the subject, we can't keep on going. And therefore, it means that I'll then try and wrap up. And in wrapping up, I'm going to invite my colleague, Professor Sfiso Ndlovu, to come and close for us. And once he has closed, we have arranged something to nibble on. So before you leave, make sure that you have had something to eat.
Good day, colleagues. I'll start by saying thanks to the Thabo Mbeki School for setting up such an important Indaba. And also, I would like to thank all those who attended this event, both virtually and who are physically here. And also, I know that publishers represent my shadow. If I was a human being from space, I was going to say my totem is publishers. So because I do operate in that space a lot, UNISA Press is my publisher. And also in December this year or January, I think Jacana will be my publisher. So there's a book edited by Prof. Bongani Mulunga on Ilanga, a newspaper founded by the president of the ANC, John Dewey, in 1903, that Jacana Press is publishing. I'm one of the contributors in that. So to some extent, I live in that space. I live in that world. And I hope this is not the last time that the school offers such a platform, because as I had said with you, it's not necessarily about Staff Rider, Scottsville, when they were formed. It's prior to that, that we're facing such issues. I mean, if some of you know about vernacular literature, how it was composed as from the 19th century, and we know that in the Cape, we had the Eastern Cape, where we had publishers publishing books in isiXhosa. And we do know that they are struggling. And I do know that the Thabo Mbeki Foundation is trying to revive those texts. I wouldn't want to call them by name, but they are trying their best to revive them. And in my works, I do know about the Zulu writers who were writing for Shutter and Shooter Press, and who were also suppressing other publications, specifically about the Lomo writers, because they found them too radical, not for consumption by the African people, who should really be spoken down to, because they cannot think for themselves. So these issues have always been there with us. So I'm just saying that thanks to the school for being brave and taking this head on and offering us a platform. And therefore, I propose closure. I hope that sometimes next year we'll make this event annually. And we hope that we'll see changes in the future. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you who attended online. We are going to have lunch, and I'm sure you can also have your online lunch. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk some more. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.